Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. Today we are here with a video on whether or not we should be concerned for the state of modern soccer wax. A video that's been on my mind a bit. I went into it with the sort of thought process on what I thought was going on, and then the stats just laid it out even further, so made me want to do this video. Hopefully enjoy. If you do, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So the premise of the video as I head over to eBay is that if we look at modern sets in soccer, here I have 2021 soccer, you'll notice there's a lot of older players in these sets, even more so as you go into 2022, 2023, we'll talk about that in a bit. But right here, I'm going to be splitting up eBay sales of the top 50 highest in the last 3 months into over the age of 35 and under the age of 35, basically saying how many vets are selling for high numbers, how many younger players are selling for high numbers. And that's going to give us an idea of what's really driving the soccer wax at the moment, right? Is it the older players? Is it the younger players? Or what percent of it is it? That was really what I was trying to find out, and that's what we'll get into today. So getting into the comparisons, I start with 2021, and we'll go through a few different years, talk about a few different sports, and compare. So in terms of young players in the top 50 auction sales in the last 3 months, there were 18 from the year of 2020-2021. That's a total of 36% as compared to the vets, which was at 32 or 64%. Here, close to a 2-to-1 victory for the vets. When I initially went through this, that seemed to make sense to me. I didn't know exactly what I was expecting, but that seemed within the range. As we'll come to find, this was actually the most favorable towards the younger class. In 2022, it is 11-39, which is close to an 80% to 20 domination for the veterans. This is very heavily influenced by Messi winning a World Cup. Of course, that's going to play some sort of factor here. But at the same time, Panini and Topps have made it more of a point to sort of go after some of the veteran players, some of their autos, and making parallels of them as well, which also contributes to this. To further confirm that, in 2023, it is still 38-12 despite not being a Messi World Cup winning year. It's nearly the same, and essentially what this is telling you is that in terms of the biggest hits in soccer in the last 3 years that are on eBay, most of the time it is a veteran. 75-80% of the time, it is someone over the age of 35 that is carrying that product for the moment. Now that's worrisome because going forward, what if that player retires? What if both of those players retire? What if all of them just start signing too much to where people care less and less? That's something you have to consider, right? And so they got me interested in looking at other sports. And as you can see here in baseball, it is just a whole different ball game in terms of the top 50 highest auction sales. It is 41 for the young players compared to 9 for the vets, which is just a total flip-flop of what we were just looking at. Now, to be fair, in baseball and in American sports in general, there's probably more speculation. I think that's a safe bet, but to entirely shift the scales like that, I don't think you can attribute it all to that. Looking at football, it's even more so the case. 2022 did happen to be Brock Purdy's rookie year, so that does have some impact in pushing it maybe a little more favorable towards the young players, but again, they just absolutely trounced it here. Barely any vets within the top 50, which is pretty surprising. I would have assumed that Tom Brady cards pretty consistently were still selling at pretty high prices, but again, doesn't seem to be the case. And then in basketball, it's more of the same, 44-6 here, which is again nearly 90%, and nothing really different across all the American sports. Essentially, it is all young guys. That's all they're collecting in terms of the modern sets. And so that leads me into some of my final thoughts. The first one, and this is a pro soccer approach to it, right? You could say that we're focusing on the right players, which I think is true, right? As I mentioned, I do think that American sports tend to lean a little bit more towards the gambling aspect of it and the prospecting, which shouldn't be done at such a high rate. So I encourage that. I think that we get that right. We focus on Messi, Ronaldo, retired players, autos, memorabilia, patches, all that jazz, and that sort of leads us a bit more towards the shining light that is the older players. So I think that we get that right. But I do think fundamentally we probably are getting something wrong at the same time in terms of if every other sport has it the entire opposite way, there's got to be some sort of reason. And so what I take away from that is we might not be getting the right cards. We might not be focusing our energy towards the right things. And that's not for me to say what is the right thing. But I do think that people probably lack a bit of foresight. Because a lot of us are just so new to the soccer space. I mean, the soccer card space, for the most part, has only been around for 3-4 years to a large degree. Now, of course, there were collectors beforehand, but let's be honest, most of us are probably pretty new. Given that, I think that, we just have a pretty short vision, a pretty short understanding of what's out there, and so we tend to focus towards what's easy, what's available, and that's modern product. And there's nothing wrong with that. I understand it. I get the desire to want to do that and how it is sort of the approach that many will take. The other sports have figured out at this point, because they've been around for decades collecting cards, that you don't want to be sitting around collecting a retired player's cards year after year after year when the companies are releasing the same thing, right? I mean, Messi and Ronaldo are going to sign every year until the end of time. Same thing with every other vet worth, having them sign a card. It's a business for these companies to get these people to do things that we want. So if we want it, they will do it. And as we have seen, that's what's going on. So the collectors of American sports understand that at this point in time. They've been around long enough. And I do think that that's something we could sort of take away from all of this. In 10 years' time, there's still going to be tons of great cards coming out every single year. And will these cards at this moment in time still be that special? That's something you have to think about. That leads me to a couple other points. The first is sustainability, which is sort of what I was hinting at there. One thing that, majorly concerns me in terms of sustainability, I went on eBay, I really meant business, because I busted out the bar graph. I haven't done this, I don't think, for a video yet, to be honest with you. What I wanted to see was how many sales on eBay have taken place over the last 3 months over $500 from a Panini card, right? Because there are tons of them now. So is it sustainable? You want to compare backwards, because that's really all you can do. Are people paying this much for other eras? Because at some point in time, ultra modern cards are not going to be ultra modern. They'll be modern, or they'll be, vintage at some point in time. I mean, they truly will. So will there be a precedent, right? So if we look back, I mean, this graph just says it all. I don't really know how to go about it. We could debate the years for each period. That doesn't matter. I mean, Panini's been around for a while. Panini is a Goliath. And in terms of card or sticker sales on eBay over the last 3 months, it is all ultra modern, every single bit of it. Modern competes a little bit. Honestly, most of that is Messi. If Messi didn't have Panini rookies, wouldn't even be close. And then pre-modern has a little bit going on for it. But other than that, vintage is practically non-existent. And so it makes you wonder if it is sustainable, given that this is such a high number compared to what any other era is holding up to at the moment. And another point that I've sort of hinted at is just collectability, in terms of if they release the same card year after year after year, are you really going to want to go out and collect it? And this is something that I've had to ask myself about different things in the hobby, because initially you hop in, you say, I want to collect this, and then more of them come out, and you say, maybe not. Maybe it's not really truly what you wanted to collect year after year after year. It might have just been something you wanted to do once, and that's okay. But at the same time, that impacts the modern space in the sense that there aren't going to be people collecting the same thing every year, because they just sort of get burnt out of it. Now, maybe that never happens. Maybe the passion lives on forever, and for some it will. I get it. I guess I just wonder how much collectability is there in something if a company can come back and print it year after year after year, and most American sports have figured that out, while soccer, again, like I mentioned earlier, we are still working through that, and that's okay, but I do think it is something that we're going to have to sort of battle through. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments, what you think of the current state of modern wax, if it's healthy that there are that many veterans, if that's, something that should be a thing more so than in other sports. Maybe the other sports are too far in the direction of prospecting. Would love to see what other people think as well, because of course, this is just one man's opinion. At the end of the day, there's tons of other people doing what they want out there. And I'll be honest, soccer wax is probably one of the best waxes in terms of just having fun per dollar. Most of the other sports make you pay 5 to 10 times what we pay and get nothing as well. So, to be honest, I kind of understand why soccer wax is still fun. It's still a good time. I totally get it. But at the same time, I do think we have to sort of wonder what the collectability of some of this is when you see prices like that. So I'm interested what you think. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like down below. I'd appreciate it greatly. If you want to see more videos like this, as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.